For the second consecutive year, the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship has unveiled its schedule for the following season. Now, earlier, once again, than expected, and then everybody else. The 2026 IMSA schedule is here, set in the stone, so people can start making early plans about what races they want to attend next year. Taking a closer look at what's on the screen, it's mostly unchanged compared to this year's schedule. You have the same sprint races at Long Beach, Laguna Seca, Detroit, Canada, and Virginia International Raceway. Then, the traditional Michelin Endurance Cup events, beginning with the season opening Rolex 24 at Daytona, the Mobil 1 12 hours of Sebring, the Salen's 6 hours of the Glen, and the season-ending Motul Petit Le Mans at Road Atlanta. However, the most notable change is a current endurance race becoming a sprint race again. After being a 6-hour endurance race since last year, Indianapolis will go back to being a 2-hour and 40-minute sprint race after only 2 years ago as an endurance championship event as well. In its place, Road America will become a 6-hour endurance race in summer 2026. The graphic courtesy there of IMSA. Well, that's delighted me because we get webcams at IMSA, so at Road America, so we can actually take a look at it. And I like Road America's circuit. So, Kobe, starting with you on this one, are you excited about Road America becoming a Michelin Endurance Cup race in 2026?
Absolutely. I'm extremely excited for Road America. And I've said on this show many times before, Road America is my favorite road course here in the United States. And I'm glad that it's getting even more proper respect than it's gotten in the past by becoming one of the premier endurance races here in the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship. But I can say I am kind of surprised that Indianapolis, only going to get a 2-year run here as an endurance race. I remember when they brought Indy back to the IMSA calendar, people were very excited, to have it as a sprint at first. And then when it became an enduro, people were looking forward to that. And then, he's going to shift back to being a sprint race. It's still great that Indy's going to stay on the calendar. I thought that this 6-hour endurance race was going to stay at least a few more years, but obviously, IMSA management wanted to make some changes here, try to shake things up since we have the same tracks returning, and look no other than Road America becoming a 6-hour endurance race. And this isn't the first time we've seen Road America be an endurance event. Back in the day when they had the American Le Mans series, they used to hold a 4-hour endurance race here, and I always look forward to seeing those. I watched some of those on YouTube. It was really good shows there. And in regards to the 6-hour endurance races, the part that I'm going to be looking at for later on is the start times. Like, are we going to do this are we going to start this in the morning and in the early evening? Are we going to start it? Preferably, I would like them to start this like in the afternoon and end at night in darkness. I think it would be so cool to see, them in Road America under the lights there. Well, with the headlights there, since Road America, with that sports cars is very dark there. I think that this is a good decision to have Road America as an endurance event, but just still a little surprised that Indy, didn't last as long as it did.
Well, good evening, Kobe. Good evening, Josh. Hello, everyone. Yes, I was going to bring up that old American Le Mans Series races. They had the 4 hours back in the day. There was one that was almost a dead heat after 4 hours from memory. The Dyson car involved, which was spectacular back in the day. So I agree with you, Kobe. I think this would be a good race to have. So obviously we've got Daytona, which is round the clock, Sebring and Petit Le Mans, which start in the day and finish in full darkness. Could Road America have its finish at sunset in the gloaming time, as we would like to say? That would be cool in the summer with the sun coming down around the trees of what was it, America's Fastest Park or whatever they call it up there at Road America. So that would be cool. It's a shame for Indy because obviously we've got the 6-hour coming up this September, but last year's was weather affected, and we spent almost 2 hours behind the safety car at one point early in that race. So almost became a sprint in the end. When that was announced a couple of years ago that we would be having the 6-hour Indianapolis, it's 2 weeks before the SRO endurance race as part of the Intercontinental GT Challenge. What's like the 9-hour or 8-hour, whatever it is. So that you would have had 2 big timed races at Indianapolis within the space of 3 or 4 weeks. So it seemed odd to me. I know they're very different championships and whatnot, and obviously very different cars running, but to have sort of similar races being run within the space of a month at the same place That gets that out of that. If of course Indianapolis is going to carry on that calendar as well as a long distance event. But yeah, getting back to Road America, it is a track that suits the longer race, with it being one of the longest distance tracks on the circuit. We always have some excellent IndyCar races there, and to get this back into a proper endurance race would I think it's going to go well. And if they, as you mentioned, Cody, do sort out a great start time for it, to have it finish in the dusk would be a little bit of a spectacle.
Yeah, and before we move on, Josh, I just wanted to add another point for all of the competitors who run full time in the World Endurance Championship and GT World Challenge Europe and other championships in Europe. Adding this to the endurance calendar, this will be a dream come true for them, because for so long, we've had Daytona, we've had Petit Le Mans, which is the ones that a lot of these guys usually run. Watkins Glen is usually hit or miss because it's during the summer and clashes are really hard. So hopefully, for this Road America race next year, there won't be too many clashes. And Road America, is a track you ask like some of the European drivers, many of them will be like, what's a track that you would love to race at that you haven't got to race at before? And since they're usually so busy with their commitments in Europe and other places around the world, they don't really get the opportunity to race at Road America because it's traditionally been a sprint round. And you obviously at your full-time IMSA drivers in those, since it wasn't an enduro. So I think it'll be a great opportunity for some of those drivers in the WEC, other championships across the world, to be able to try to come to Road America, because they could potentially find an endurance seat and finally check that track off their list of tracks you want to drive, because Road America is not just one of the best tracks in the United States and North America, is also a highly respected racetrack around the world.
And on that point, it's gone in the first weekend of August, where it's generally not a busy time for the other long distance races in Europe, in Asia, obviously in Asia, and that kind of thing. So you would perhaps open the door to some of those endurance drivers to put their hand up even higher and go, yes, pick me, please. I want to come and do that one.
I wonder if it might entice Sebastian Vettel to come and have a go, because Vettel's always wanted to drive at Road America. So I wonder if that'll get the oiled moisture running and get him up there. There's rumours of him coming back to Formula One as well, actually. That's still coming up in the last couple of weeks. And we're only one into the season, folks, in round 2 coming up this weekend in very quick succession. So a couple more words that have been described for IMSA's schedule next year: stability and consistency. With no new tracks added, making Road America an endurance race was a way of spicing things up just a little bit. However, there may come a point in the future where the current tracks get a little stale, and fans may want to see IMSA visiting tracks not currently on the schedule, like former tracks such as Lime Rock, COTA, Mid-Ohio, or other road courses in North America. Speaking of Mid-Ohio, the standalone Michelin Pilot Challenge race returns with the 4-hour enduro. Now, Mid-Ohio hasn't been on the WeatherTech Sports Car Championship schedule for a few years now, but the Michelin Pilot Challenge has taken full advantage of being the main event on that weekend as well, without being in the shadow as a support race of the other championships. So, Matt, starting to you on this one, do you think IMSA needs to start adding new tracks to the schedule in 2027? And do you like the idea of sending its support series to tracks away from its main championship?
Well, first point is, again, the IMSA have done it again by getting next year's calendar out. We're not even at the end of March. Some of the championships haven't even started this year, and we've got dates for next year already for IMSA, which credit to all of the team, John Doonan and all of the IMSA crew, for getting this out again so super early, much like they did last year. Mid-Ohio, last year, yeah, you're right. It was Pilot Challenge that headed it off. I've got off the top of my head, there was Mazdas, maybe Lamborghinis as well on the support bill, and the TCR World Tour came and had a play on that weekend from memory. So it gives some of the support championships a bit more of a bump up the schedule, the pecking order, which for is kind of cool. But I would like to see the big class back, even if it was just a GT race like we see at VIR. We could have a GT only race perhaps at Mid-Ohio. I've always said about Mid-Ohio, it's a great track, needs to be a mile longer, just needs a little bit more of distance. It's such a short lap there. New tracks coming, I don't know. This is a bit like the IMSA schedule, and it has been for I don't know, for 5-6 years now. You could name it off the top of your head with your eyes closed and your fingers in your ears. It's a bit like the Formula One calendars of the late 90s. Australia, Brazil, Argentina, Imola, Barcelona, Monaco, Canada, France, Silverstone, Germany, Hungary, Italy, Belgium, Nürburgring thrown in there with a Luxembourg Grand Prix or something. Then they go to Japan. It was always fairly the same. And IMSA has done a similar thing with a little bit of shuffling going on from time to time, but it has been, date equity is the term they love to use and throw around for when things are, which to some degree is great, but you would like to see them go to a COTA. What they've done, 1 or 2 races ever at COTA in the current IMSA form off the top of my head. Maybe go to Montreal, possibly instead of CTMP, perhaps. Maybe throw another street race in. We used to go to St. Petersburg with the American Le Mans Series cars back in the day to support the IndyCar race. So I know we've got Long Beach, but it would be nice to see, and Detroit, of course, be nice to see another different street race, maybe Arlington coming in for next year for IndyCar. That could, we've talked about that before, didn't we? When that got announced, the date clash perhaps would not work with Sebring, but somewhere like that, or I don't think there's anywhere else off the top of my head that's missing apart from the GTP cars at Mid-Ohio and perhaps COTA getting back on the schedule as a full-time race. But of course, that has the WEC race for the WEC race at COTA later in the year. So that does get a sports car race, just not with the American Championship.
Yeah, and on that note about the street race in Dallas, the IndyCar is going to be doing that. Yeah, they just recently announced a date for that, and it's going to be happening exactly 1 week before the next year's Mobil 1 12 Hours of Sebring. So if you're an IndyCar driver looking for an endurance ride for next year, you can be extremely happy because those dates will not clash. But to your point, Matt, going to a street race in Dallas and Sebring the following week, that doesn't sound feasible at all to these teams. So Dallas is probably going to be off the list here, but I don't disagree with anything you said. I think it would be nice to see IMSA back at COTA. I enjoyed the Lone Star Le Mans weekend that they had there. Yes, unfortunately, we don't go there anymore. And then Lime Rock Park, it would be great to see the GT cars going back there for the GT only round, just like they do at Virginia International Raceway. I remember when Lime Rock first fell off the calendar, people were extremely upset about that because they love Lime Rock Park. They like to call it the Bristol Motor Speedway of road course racing, since the lap is so short and it drives just like a bull ring. Lime Rock is definitely one of the more popular road courses on the schedule. So maybe that'll come back again in the future. And yeah, it would be great to see the GTPs back at Mid-Ohio as well. And I do think at some point in the future that they should probably start looking at new tracks, maybe just tracks like the tracks you just mentioned, ones you haven't gone to, or new ones as well. I know Montreal's been in the headlines about getting back in the NASCAR world with rumors and all that. And the Cup Series and Xfinity Series will be going to Mexico City this year. I believe Grand Am used to go to Mexico City in the past, if my memory serves correct. Yeah, so that would be a really cool option, since Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez seems to be really popular right now. You got Formula E there, obviously the Mexican Grand Prix with Formula One, NASCAR's coming there, and there's rumors, that IndyCar Series could be going there as well as soon as next year, thanks, to Pato O'Ward and the push he's been doing to try to get a race in Mexico. So why not add them to the equation? I'm sure fans will really be excited to see a major sports car race there, in Mexico City. Or even go to a place that they haven't been to in a long time. I believe American Le Mans Series also used to go to Sonoma back in the day. It's been ages since we've seen IMSA race at Sonoma, and although it happened during the times of COVID, they had a GT only race at the Charlotte Roval. Unfortunately, the weather conditions were extremely bad that day, so the cars didn't get a proper crack at that. It would be nice to see GT back at the Roval if they ever decide to come back there. I thought that track really suited the GT style of racing. So the possibilities are endless, and we'll see what IMSA does in 2027. I think it's good that they have stability and consistency, as you mentioned, Josh, right now with their current schedule. But I do think, as the years go on, they're probably going to need to change it up and make it more interesting. I think at making Road America as an endurance race is probably the best that they could do at this time, but I'm sure there'll be more possibilities in the future to do even more. And Adam Limmery says you like to see IMSA go back to New Orleans and run around the Superdome like they did back in the day, maybe San Antonio as well. Yeah, there are quite a few cities, that have been in the rumor mill about wanting to host a street race of any type. And then JT says that you just looked at was TCR World Tour VP Sports Car Challenge. Speaking of VP Sports Car Challenge, they were on the support bill during the NASCAR weekend at COTA just a few weeks ago. And you also mentioned Mustang Challenge, the Mazda MX-5s alongside the Pilot Challenge last year. And then Adam says that IMSA ran at Lime Rock Park on Memorial Day weekend back in the day. Oh yeah, I do remember that, Adam. It was like the day after Monaco, Indy, and the Coca-Cola 600. So when we had the day off on that Monday, you could sit back and watch. Believe it was the Grand Am Roulette Sports Car Series at the time when they'd race on that Monday there. And then also JT says that you might need to create the 2026 mega chart already and get ahead on things.
We're
JT, I've already
halfway.
got mine going. Yeah, I've started mine. Don't you worry about that. As soon as that calendar drops, straight onto Word, added all the rest of the of 26 the weekends in, got that straight away. I'm just looking back at my other extremely big file. COTA IMSA race. It happened file. There's a file. COTA IMSA, the first 4 years after the reformation of it all, they went to COTA for 4 years, but they haven't been since. And you're right, Kobe. Mexico used to have the Grand Am race, which would dovetail with the Busch Series. When the Busch Series would go there, that would be the double header. It would be Busch Series, NASCAR, and Grand Am at Mexico.